episode 26 with Deuce, Pesic.
Welcome to Men of Abundance, the podcast for those looking to level up their lives by hanging out with some of the greatest leaders and established professionals in our community, living a life of integrity, honor, and the abundance mentality. Prepare to pay it forward with your host, former Army medic turned lifestyle entrepreneur, Wally Carmichael.
Aloha, Men of Abundance, and welcome back to another amazing show, and it's Pay It Forward Friday. But this show is just a little bit different than the average show because I sought out Deuce, our guest today, and he has such an amazing story that I just had to let him go on and tell it. So we don't follow the normal format in this show, as you will soon see. And I trust that you're going to hang on to every single word that Deuce has to share with you, because you can feel his passion and you can hear his abundant mentality in everything that he's sharing with us. Now, as Deuce goes through his story, he's going to share a lot of information and a lot of links. Don't worry about trying to write everything down. You may even want to go back and listen to this one again. But regardless, I'm going to have everything listed in the show notes at menofabundance.com/026. Or you can just go to the podcast area and type in Deuce in the search bar and the show will pop right up. Now, the cool thing about the Men of Abundance show notes for each podcast is that there are timestamps within the show notes. And what that means is, as you go through the show notes and you see the subject and the portion of the show that you want to listen to, you can click on the timestamp and it will go directly to that part of the show. Now, as far as I can tell, that technology is pretty unique within the industry, and I had the pleasure of having the creator of that technology on Men of Abundance in episode 22, so you can go back and listen to that. Before I introduce our guest today, I want to remind you that you can subscribe to Men of Abundance on iTunes or on Stitcher so that you don't miss one single episode. And if you're enjoying this experience and the value information being shared here at Men of Abundance, I encourage you to be abundant in your day-to-day and paying it forward by sharing this information with others and leaving a rating and review at iTunes or at Stitcher, whichever platform that you're listening to this on. That way more men can find us and enjoy the same experience. Our guest today is Deuce Pesic. Well, that's the American way to say his name, but I'll let him say it the way he says it, because he was born and raised in Serbia, Yugoslavia. His family moved to New York City, then later they moved on to Hollywood, Florida, and finally ended up living in Tallahassee, Florida. As you will soon hear, Deuce has endured many struggles in his life, but he's never let that stop him from moving forward and realizing his dreams. Deuce is certainly a man with unwavering passion for everything that he does in life, especially for his son. And I'm very excited to introduce you to him today. Deuce, welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm honored to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Where are you at in the world?
I am in Tallahassee, Florida.
Ooh, nice. I like Florida. I have not been to Tallahassee, though, but I've been down in, I guess you call it the lower, Miami up to Cocoa Beach and Orlando, Tampa area.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, Hollywood is actually another city I grew up in my childhood, and I spent most of my teenage years and early adult years there. So I know what you mean. I miss that whole eastern South Florida area. I mean, there are some of the most beautiful beaches in the world right here in our state. It's absolutely amazing.
There really are. There absolutely are. My experience is super humid there as well.
Yes, but you do have that 5-minute rain, shower, storm, hurricane, tsunami thing that comes in every day for like 5 minutes, and then it just refreshes everything.
Right, yeah, that's the good thing about it. So before we get started in the show, I like to start out the show the same way I start my day, which is with an attitude of gratitude. And I'd like for you to share with us what you're grateful for today.
Today, well, every day recently, it's been, I'm very grateful for the people I surround myself, and family is always first. I am extremely grateful for my son. After you hear everything I'm doing, this is all for him. super bright young man. His name is Nicholas. He's 15 years old, just started his sophomore year in high school. He's a great student. He's taken up in band, and he's been in percussion last year. He was in the band. He was playing the bass drum last year, and then over the summer he auditioned for the drum line for the snare line, and he was accepted in that. So I'm very happy and proud that he's picked something, to go towards that, that he enjoys, and ultimately what he enjoys winds up making other people happy, because that's how I look at music. Music is a universal language, and if you can play something to make other people appreciate and love the sound, and I'm very happy that he's happy. Outside of him, I'm very I've got family in Europe. I'm very grateful for them. They've supported me, and they're always by my side. Thanks to Facebook, I'm able to connect to them more often than I did, say, 5 years ago. So I'm very grateful for them. As far as like close friends, I've learned through the entrepreneurial spirit that you have to let go of people that don't serve your purpose, no matter how much you love them. But if they're not there to support you, and you have that inherent belief within yourself that, look, this is what I'm doing, and if you don't follow, I'm going to move on. But I'm very grateful for the people that have stuck around. They've helped me out during my lowest points in my life, and I'm up here in Tallahassee. I find myself a group of wonderful people, and I'm not talking about just great people. They work hard and they spend time with family, but the character that goes beyond that is the ones that if they see somebody hurt or stranded on the side of the road, despite what they have to do, they're pulling over to make sure that individual's all right. Those kind of folks. And I know I asked you earlier if I could name a couple of people, but today is Friday. A very good close friend of mine who's helped me out a ton, that I'm so grateful for. Him and his wife are dynamite people. His name is Claudio Escalera, and he owns Nail It Carpentry. He's a subcontractor up here. And his wife, Meredy Escalera, she owns Destination Real Estate. She's a broker, owner of the firm. Dynamite folks, and I just wanted to give them a special shout out, because I wanted them to know how much they mean to me in my life. These are the folks that, when you go to their house, there's a chair and a plate at the dinner table. They're not asking. It's there. It's that type of caliber of individuals. And I am so grateful that they're in my heart. They're close friends from Alabama, Corey and Hallie. They're my adopted family. They took me in the same way. They've helped me out during some difficult moments. And, I cannot express my gratitude enough that they're in my life. As far as on the business side, I am very grateful for the two people that I initially picked to be part of, my company, are people that I've known for a very long time. And Peter Madsen is my vice president of sales, and Stephanie Davis is our executive assistant. Now, just to kind of preface this, they each have their own careers, okay? Peter I've known for 23 years. Stephanie I've known for just about 10 now. Both super, super sharp individuals. And when I approached them to come on board on this, amazing journey, they took a moment, they spoke with their families, and they decided that, when the time comes to where, our company gets funded to build what we want to do, they would decide to leave and come on board to help us grow. So I am very grateful that somebody would go ahead and do that with their own families, mind you. They're leaving something stable for something crazy, for something radical, but they ultimately see the vision, and I am very, very grateful for them for doing so. There is one gentleman that actually you and I have not talked about this, but about a month ago, I was actually approached by a fellow entrepreneur who happened to find me through a press release that I posted 3 years ago when I did an Indiegogo campaign to raise funds for my project. Well, I did a press release, and this gentleman was looking for an entrepreneurial group in Tallahassee that maybe they would meet, twice a month for coffee and kind of help each other grow their businesses. Well, this is a serendipitous moment actually, because my hashtag to find my article, one of the hashtags was Tallahassee Inventor, because the title of that article was Tallahassee Inventors Raising Funds on Indiegogo for his humanitarian project. Well, he typed in Tallahassee Inventors, and my article popped up. Well, long story short, he developed a fantastic problem-solving product in the pet industry. And one of the things that I admired about him was that of his self-awareness. He had said, listen, I don't think I can sell this by myself. I need somebody. And he saw what I'm looking to do. He saw that I was, a genuine individual. I'm looking to do good in the world. I'm not a shyster. I'm not I'm just not one of those guys. So about 3 weeks ago, he asked me, he's like, Deuce, listen, it would be an honor if you come on board with our product as co-founder. So I was like, wow, holy cow, what an amazing, opportunity, because it is a fantastic product, and and we're looking at hopefully in the next 6 months that we'll be able to go ahead and start well, actually not 6 months, in about 3 to 4 months, we're looking to approach buyers. I mean, we're that far ahead with the product. Well, he was that far ahead with the product. I came in and just, helped in where he was at. And here we're going to be doing a campaign on Fundus for his product, which is called Cup of Heat. And we're raising funds just so we can have enough funds for transportation to get to the big box stores, to get to the buyers of those, for those companies. And in the next 6 months, we could be rocking and rolling on store shelves at, various pet supply stores. So, I'm very grateful. So James Starr, thank you so very much for, seeing what I'm doing and bringing me on board to your fantastic product. And, we're looking to do good things in that market as well. And the other thing I'm grateful for is I'm grateful for the ability to go where I want to go despite the challenges. I'm very grateful that God instilled that mentality that don't give up, just keep going. Don't worry about what anybody else says. Don't worry about any of the challenges. Do not have the end sight blocked in any way. Just keep going. And I'm very grateful to have, to have him in my heart. He guides me daily. And so, and once again, listen, there's a lot of people that I could sit here and thank, and it'll take up the whole hour. I've got some good close family friends in South Florida and they know who they are. I want to say thank you very much for all your support, and I'm very grateful that we've been together for so many years. That I'm a big believer in being we are the sum of our life's experience, and I'm grateful that those people were in my life to shape me into the person that I am today. So thank you guys very much, and these are the people that I thank every day. Sure.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's quite a bit to be thankful about and grateful for. And all of those people that you mentioned, if they have any links or anything like that, make sure you get those to me, because I'll add those to the show notes, and we'll pay it forward to all of those individuals.
Oh, listen, can I add one more person in?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Listen, just to give you a little background, things have been a lot more difficult for me over this past year and a half. And we'll get into that later as far as how things transpired. But I've got a couple of friends. Their last names are Glovers, and we're very good friends. The Jessica and Tim, Jessica's parents, we would hang out, like we would do the weekend thing, and they're also a family that brought me in, and there's always a plate of food. There's always a plate at the table, and when there's celebrations and stuff, I'm always invited. I mean, dinner at Thanksgiving with them. So it's not just friends. It's like family. Well, Shannon Shelton, he is the owner of Shannon's Motorsports here in Tallahassee. He knew I was in a tough spot last year, that just to help me out, put a couple of bucks in my pocket during the week. He's like, listen, Janice and I, we don't like to do our landscaping. So, if you want to, like some side hustle, we'll happy to help you. Needless to say that they've employed me, the whole year. And he has his his jet ski shop there on his property, so it stemmed to me here today helping him pull motors out of jet skis and disassembling motorcycle engines and working on four-wheelers, okay, because things have been tough. And I'm sorry, I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for them to give me work, to be useful, to be valuable. And, my heart goes out to them, and I can't thank them enough. So I had to mention them as well.
And I'm glad you did. And Men of Abundance and Deuce, this is exactly what Men of Abundance is all about. This is the community that I'm striving to build here within the podcast and within the community on Facebook, is men who are willing to reach out and help each other out, regardless of their background, regardless of where they're from. And so you have shared a lot of great gratitude towards people that have definitely touched you in your life, and I know there are many more. And what I want to get into now, and you mentioned one thing too that I want to mention before we really get into your backstory, is as you were becoming an entrepreneur, there were certain, how was it you put it, there's certain people that you just knew you had to be around, and others that you knew you couldn't be around. And that's true with anything. Yeah, that's true with anything you want to do in life. The fact is you're the average of the 5 people that you spend most of your time with. And that's what you just chose to do. And that's what you should do when you want to move into a different, into something different.
Well, and one of the things that, Peter Mattson, I hold him in high regard. I've known him, like I said, for 23 years. Great family man, hardworking, very analytical, great with numbers, and he's a dynamite salesperson. I mean, but on top of it, he's a man of faith, and that's something that I respect him very much for. And he had said to me, because I had said, listen, Pete, there are people that I wanted to bring on board and stuff, but friends and stuff that I have had for 30, 35 plus years, when they kind of taper off, and I'd like to think that they're busy, they're doing their thing, they're growing their empires and such. There's always that inherent that you just feel that tension that I hope it wasn't any that the fact that I'm still I'm out there well, he's not because the group determines its members. So if my projects just seem to be a little bit too out there and maybe unrealistic, I hope it's not for that. I hope it's not for that. I just, but regardless of whatever it is, that even though there's distance between us, I love those people. They, listen, my friends that were like from 30 plus years, in my darkest period in my life, these guys were there. These guys are the ones that were, calling on the phone, making sure everything was all right. Do I have food in the fridge? Do I need to send you money? What's going on? Everything all right? Everything good? That will never be forgotten. And it's because of that characteristic from these, 5, 6 real tight, close friends that, I went to high school and college with and so forth, that we're still friends. We just don't communicate as much as we used to, but I still love them regardless. That, it that characteristic of bringing aid to your fellow friend, person who's been in your life, that's what friends do. Well, that was the reason that right there was the reason why I decided to name my project Friends, because in someone's darkest hours, my friends could come and help. You see what I mean? And it's not really wordplay. It's not a play on words, but on the play of, action of what friends actually really do for each other. So I was very happy that the acronym came out, just right, because I battled with it for quite some time. But I'm happy that it fell through like that, because it's not so much of just a product, but it's the actions and the feeling you get when you hear that there's friends looking out for you.
And that's one of the things that caught my eye right away was that acronym, and it just resonated with me right away. And then when I looked at a little bit more about you, so what I want to do now is I want to learn a little bit more about you, because obviously you love talking about your friends and you love talking about the people who have gotten you to where you are today. I want to hear a little bit more about you before we hear a little bit more about Friends.
Absolutely. I'm a classic immigrant, born and raised in Yugoslavia. My real name is Dusan Pesic. It's been Americanized to Dusan Pesic. And the reason people call me Deuce, and whether they call me Dusan or Dusan or Deuce, it really doesn't matter. But Deuce came up short in my high school and college years, because it's spelled just as it sounds, Dusan. Well, I think it was the very first, my freshman year in high school. First day of school, attendance is being called out, and every time they came, because you see USAN and there's a D next to it, well, the S is right next to the D on the keyboard. So every first day of every class, whether it was high school or college or whatever, it was always the same thing. Oh, this must be a misspelling. Is Susan Pesic here? It's like, no, it's not Susan, it's Dusan, but please just call me Deuce. So that's how Deuce evolved. But the first time, born and raised in Serbia, in Yugoslavia, 1968, socialism was very difficult at the time. The different states within the country were battling for separation and so forth. So my dad took my mom and said, "Listen, I think we need to get on out of here." So, but our country wasn't giving out visas. So what we had to do is I was a year old. I went with my parents, the three of us. We went to Austria to stay with some family friends for just that 6-month period to get the visa. And sure, lo and behold, we were the classic immigrant story that you hear every day. We landed at JFK in New York City in 1970. It was a husband, a wife, and their 18-month-old son with one suitcase and $13 in the pocket. And that's how it was. That's just how it was. A lot of us came, not just from our country, but everywhere in the region, people were, migrating to the U.S. for a better life for their families and such. And but they wound up getting their respective occupations and such. But childcare was very difficult. So I was being watched by friends of friends of friends. So it wasn't really like an ideal situation for people in a new country, not knowing anywhere else to go. So what they did is the first $600 they earned, they bought a round trip plane ticket for my grandfather to come get me, to take me back to live with them in Serbia, and I lived with them there till 1975. In 1973, my parents came to do a visit in the summer. They went back, but in 1975, my mom came and got me, and I started living with them in New York City, good old Ridgewood, Queens, Catalpa and Onderdonk, right there in Ridgewood, and I spent my life from 75 to 82 there. It was great being in the big city. it was just a lot of people, like in one area, in one city. It was just, the population was wild. But we had taken a trip to St. Petersburg in 1982 for a summer vacation. My dad had an uncle there, and he said, "Well, I have a friend in Hollywood. Is that far from here?" They were like, "Oh, it's about 4 to 6 hours." And they're like, "Oh, no, no, no." He's like, "No, let's go on the East Coast. It'll be a fun road trip." Okay, so we're taking a vacation while we're on vacation. So my parents, we got to Hollywood, and we were like, "Holy cow!" There's no like high rises. There's no, you have beautiful homes, but 1, 2, maybe 3 stories high. But all you see is palm trees and sky. So needless to say, we got back home to New York City, and 30 days later, there's a U-Haul in front of the house. We're packing everything up, and we moved down there. 1982, I started high school at South Broward High School, right there in Hollywood, Florida. I got to tell you, that whole high school, college period that I was there, it was really wonderful. I mean, Florida's, everything's kind of like spread out and stuff, but there's just beauty everywhere, and I'm very, very happy that I wound up having these friends that like to experience. Let's go to Coconut Grove. Let's go to Miami Beach. There's so much to see in this world that it's like, yeah, nobody sees the whole part of the world. And I'm sure you've went through my my Deuce Pesic page on Facebook, and I post a lot of pictures of like the Maldives. The Maldives, that's my bucket list. That's but I post. I mean, it's just the colors of the waters, and then there's then you've got Dubai. You've got South Africa. You've got China. You've got Japan. You've got Thailand, Vietnam. I mean, just there's so much. I have to quote from American Beauty when he said, "There's so much beauty in this world that sometimes I just can't take it." And it's absolutely true. Mm-hmm. That's why I share pictures of the world, because a lot of people don't know that those places exist. Now, if you don't know a place exists and you see it and it touches you somehow, well, you know what? Maybe that mindset changes, and now you're going to start putting some pennies aside to want to go see that place. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's important to see the world. It really is. But from my high school, I lived in South Florida. 19. I was married in 1995. But let's say prior to that, I was in the restaurant industry. And whether you're a cook and you want overtime, I mean, you could do that. But I was also, I went into management, so 85, 90 hours a week. That's standard. You gotta see the stuff coming in. You gotta see how it's going out, and making sure everything's spot on. And it got to the point where I was working with this one company. I was with them for about 6-7 years at the store level. Well, I was there with them from the very first restaurant of the new concept, and the name of the restaurant at the time was Eastside Mario's, and we were owned. It was a Canadian company, but this was the first baby built in Aventura area, North Miami, and Aventura Mall was like one of the top 5 malls in the country. Just beautiful stores, gorgeously laid out. So the corporation wound up expanding big in Canada, but now we started attracting franchisees in the States. So they called me to be a corporate trainer for them, to be their U.S. rep, because Canada only allows like 5 weeks of visa to come into the U.S. At a time, 5 weeks at a time. And, to open up a new restaurant for a franchisee and stuff, and train their staff and employees, that was quite, there's a lot to do in a short period of time. Well, by having me in the States, I was able to come early or stay later, to ensure that things get done. So it benefited them greatly, but it benefited me too, because I again, was able to see parts of the country, parts of Canada. I was in Toronto. I actually opened up 2 restaurants in Quebec. That was a great talk about learning French like super fast. Yeah,
Immersion.
forget Rosetta Stone. You just get thrown into a French community. You'll learn to get around real quick. So I stayed in the hospitality and the restaurant industry all the way through. I think it was about 2003. Just when my entrepreneurial period started was in 2003. But talking about myself, I'm glad you mentioned that because I was looking at your flow of the show, and I saw that you had the kick in the gut moment and the enough is enough moment. Well, there's actually a video that I've been working on. I'm actually halfway through the script, but I had an idea to do something much like what we're doing today, just to talk about background and talk about the troubles and talk about adversity and passing through challenges and so forth. Well, my kick in the gut, and I'm calling it actually, the video is going to be called 18 Years. Those 18 years were the part where I succumbed to try to be normal like everyone else, to have a regular job, but there's still, things were just not right. But the kick in the gut moment started in 1994, and the enough is enough and was in 2012. So that 18-year period is where I really, let's just say like this, 1994 was the worst year of my life, and it was one of those where I was questioning God's existence. Okay? Let's just put it like this. January of 1994, my grandfather passed away. March, 3 months later, 2 months later, my mother passed away. June, one of my aunts passed away, and on Thanksgiving Day, one of my father's brothers, one of my uncles, passed away. So at that point, it was one of those real like why are you coming after me? Like I had my moment with God, and it was looking back now. I hated for losing belief in him for a 1 or 2 year period, but I guess it needed to happen because things turned around. Like my mindset turned around, and it was like, listen, things happen for a reason. He has the master plan. You need to believe it, and strong. Be strong, be tough, work through it, and that was a difficult period for me. It was losing those close members of my family and feeling like I was being punished for something, when in essence it was just God's way of saying, look, it was time for them to come home. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I almost took it personally because, we're one of those families, like we don't cause drama, we don't make problems for anybody. We go to work, we pay taxes, they live for the weekends, they loved entertaining, people. And once again, their character of, coming from a third world nation, there every day you help each other out. It's a lifestyle. That's part of life. My uncle was very known for slaughtering and killing pigs in the fall, so people, so you could go ahead and package the meat up and put them in the freezer so you have food through the winter, right? Well, he was so efficient at it that that's what he did. In the fall, not only did he take care of, our pigs, and clean them and, load up our freezers, but on his days off or whatever, he would come and do that, for your neighbor, for your close friend, for your uncle, and so forth. That was just, the way it is, so, being that type of, coming from that part of the world where that's just how you do things, there was a part of me that felt like I was being punished for something. Like, why are you taking my family away from me? But, the day I put God back in my heart was a memorable day, and I'm very happy that he's been in it and by my side during all the the next trials and tribulations after that, till this very day. Um, I mentioned I was married in 1995. I found my wife here in Tallahassee. I'm sorry, my son's mom. I we She was one of the managers that was at this restaurant that I was opening up, and we connected. And sure enough, here we were. We were getting married and everything, and the dynamite lady that she is, she went through a lot with me. I should say the two of us went through a lot together. I have a ton of respect for her. But another thing during that 18-year period, which was all the way through to from the 1996 through 2000. We tried having children, and we've had 4 opportunities, and it just never transpired. So, of course, you're battling with that. You get the high of, here we just might have, the child we've been wanting, and then, 2 months later or so, you're trying to console each other through another heartache, and this happened to us several times. It happened 3 or 4 times. So it just gradually deteriorated our relationship, I think, and it just so happens, that we talked about it. We were splitting up, and lo and behold, that last night that we were together, the egg took. And here we are, 15 years later, with a handsome young man, who's been nothing but a joy, and so smart and bright, and it's just funny how things happen sometimes. But to further go down that road, even though our relationship was already strained, after 5 years of going through these tough moments. I didn't having that characteristic of growing up in Yugoslavia, tight knit family and stuff, and working in the restaurant industry, seeing so many single moms and stuff, that I was like, well, my son's not going to be raised without me. I'm his dad. And if more dads stayed by their children's side, we'd have less problems in the world. That's just it is what it is. But that's my take on it. And I'm up here in Tallahassee. Like I said, I have friends, connections. I could easily found work in many different industries in South Florida, but that's not what's important. What's important is a son should have his dad by his side. So that's why I'm here. And he actually, during that time of 2003, it was when he was like already 3 years old now, 2.5, 3 years old. It was when my entrepreneurial spirit started evolving, because I was looking what kind of, the idea was, well, I should start looking around to buy a house so my boy has another home. He has his mom's home and he has his dad's home. Well, certain ideas started kicking around and such that over these last 13 years, a lot has evolved as far as in what I'm looking to do, as far as like my sharpening my saw, getting familiar with what I want to do and how I want to get there. And there were ups and downs during that period, but at the end, that enough is enough moment, which was the ending of the 18-year period, which was 2012, nothing but self-awareness, Wally, nothing but self-awareness. I know exactly what I want to do. I know exactly where I want to go. I know exactly who the people that I want by my side to help me get there, to help us get there, to achieve great things in this world. Look, I'm 48 years old. I've got about 15 good years in me, let's say, right? I'd like to think more, but I've been a smoker most of my life, and I don't eat healthy. So but there's still time to change that, which is great. It's never too late to turn that around. But what kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? My son's going to have children. What are they going to remember me as? And that's when things started kicking around, that it's not just about the money. It's, solve the issue, solve the why. What is the why? What is your why? Once you know that, you formulate the plan to get there. And then you start taking action. Well, I've laid out a really, really big, grandiose project in front of me, and it was actually August 29th. It's going to be 11 years that the FRENDS project actually was conceived. And, the first 2 years were rough as far as the FRENDS project were concerned, because I learned later that I was going to the wrong people. When you're thinking about somebody building a mobile structure, the first thing I thought of was, all right, go to builders, because they have the facilities, they have everything, but that wasn't their thing. And there's so many builders, that's how many no's I got.
Yeah, so let's get into that. So what exactly is FRENDS? And it's the acronym is FRENDS.
Yes, sir.
All right, Men of Abundance, I hate to say it, but this show is going to be continued. We had such an amazing conversation. We completely lost track of time, or I did anyway. I was totally engaged in his conversation, as I'm sure you were as well. So we're going to continue this conversation, but I'm not going to have you wait until Monday to hear the rest of the conversation. The rest of the conversation is going to post first thing in the morning, Saturday morning. I wouldn't normally have a continuation, but I just know that many listeners who listen to this show and many other podcasts, if you saw a show that was over an hour, even into an hour and a half, you probably wouldn't even click on it. So I don't mean to have any trickery going on here, but I just wanted to cut this show in half and let you get on with the rest of your day, and then we'll continue the show tomorrow. And what Deuce shares with us tomorrow about his project and a few other things is really going to blow your mind. I absolutely love this conversation, and I look forward to you joining us on the next episode. And of course, I know you don't want to miss the next episode, so make sure you go to iTunes or to Stitcher and subscribe. That way you get notified as soon as the episode is live. All right, Abundant Leaders, now go out and live your life of abundance and make sure you pay it forward.
That's all for today, Abundance Leaders. For more about our guests and the powerful information we shared with you today, be sure to sign up for our mailing list at menofabundance.com. We appreciate your time and look forward to hanging out with you on our next episode. So until then, be sure to pay it forward and live your life of abundance.